Now we need to mount it. To do so, we're going to take our new beautiful Dive Series strap, undo the sleeve on the outside, and with this, we are going to unravel it, become enamored with its beauty, because it's awesome. And just some brief anatomy here before we get into it. This is a hook strap. On one end, you have a rectangular loop or slider, and on the other, you've got a beautifully engraved hook, which is also removable by pulling the elastic to the left and sliding it out. So this is what we call a fixed bar compatible hook, which means that you can slide this through a fixed bar space. But note, however, that this is a much thicker construction because of its, once again, awesome glow print, which is silicone based and extremely durable, very bright in its glow, but it is also a 0.5 millimeter thick. So that is going to add about 1 millimeter of thickness to the overall elastic. So squeezing it through a fixed bar space will be tight. And to do so, we'll get into that later. For now, this is going to be installed onto a watch with spring bars. And this is going to serve most people. So I will show you that first. And to begin, we are going to remove the spring bars. To do so, you'll probably want a tool of some sort with just a little nib on the end that's handy for grabbing the shoulders of your spring bars. And all you're gonna do is pull it out, drop the spring bars through. There you go. And from here, we're actually going to put that aside and install the tether. All we really want to do is flip this over so that the mostly black side is facing down, like that. And then we're going to install it onto the strap itself. To do so, we're going to slide the strap through the space here, kind of over the top, and then it's gonna go beneath most of it. And again, that's where removing the hook comes into place. You can theoretically install it over this slider here. It's just a little trickier, and you've got the hook that can remove, so why not? So we've just gone over the bottom, under the middle, and then we're gonna come back up through the other side, like this. And you just kind of want to wiggle it through, not a big deal. There's plenty of space, and everything stretches, so no big deal. There we go. So we are through. And that tether is actually now completely installed. That's it. And at this point, it's now going to be about installing the watch onto the strap. And to do so, I'm going to set this down, and then the watch is going to be set right over the top of your tether. And then we're going to pull this back to kind of give us room to install our spring bars. And these you can usually just push into place. Just take note that we are installing this above the tether. There we go, clicked in. Great, that's one side done, and then we're gonna go to this side. Okay, that's side 2, clicked in place. The tether now sits where it should, inside the watch, just like that. And that is now fully installed. Now we're going to talk about the rest of the hook strap adjustment. And this is the same regardless of if you're using a tether or not. So pay attention. This will all be very helpful regardless of whether or not you're using a tether or just a regular strap without one. To adjust, what we want to do first is put the hook back in place after installing your tether. There we go, just slides back on. And then we're going to rotate this to show us the piece of elastic in the back here, which we're going to pull out and away from the watch, holding onto the tether so it doesn't get pulled too far out. So I'm pulling on the side with the loop and the tag. I'm going to make this about 1.5 to 2 inches long. Something like that is perfect. At this point, I am going to pinch this elastic here, and I am going to squeeze this through this loop. Remembering that this is some thicker elastic, so it might take a little more muscle, but it's not a big deal. You just pull it through and it kind of slides on. And this generates our loop. Because of the silicone, it can get kind of grippy, so I would just pull this portion back that the slider is attached to so it doesn't get bunched up. Continue to make a loop here, just a little bit longer, maybe about an inch, depending on sizing, but that usually works for me. Again, I'm just kind of pulling the slack of this part here so that it doesn't get jammed up. So let's start with that. This is our loop, and this is what the hook attaches onto. Your wrist will go right through here, and then this will terminate onto the hook. So let's give that a shot. What we're first going to do is open this up all the way to give your hand as much room as possible to glide through this space here. I'm going to pinch this as I install the watch onto my wrist, just so that we don't lose this. This loop will adjust the overall length and fitment of the strap, so it's important to maintain that. Okay, just going to slide it on. There we go. I'm going to pull this out. I'm using my finger to kind of push the watch back down. Pull that out, come around, and I'm pushing this against this work surface, pulling this, and then I'm just going to hook this on like so, boom. And that is now a fully assembled Tether hook strap dive series combo, fully installed, super comfortable, awesome look. There you go. Now, if you wanted to adjust this further, say you thought it felt too loose, you would first come over here, undo this, and if it feels too loose, you actually want to extend this loop out. And you can do that from two different directions. Bear with me, this will make sense in 1 second. This loop is generated from the elastic on this very bottom layer here, on this side of your wrist, and this piece of elastic going this way. You can generate a longer loop by pulling from either of those sides. If you pull from this side, if I extend it, this will pull this sort of assembly area with the hardware closer to the watch, if you'd rather position your hardware there. If I pull more length from this side, then that is going to keep this hardware where it is, but tighten the strap by reducing the overall length on this side. So that is entirely up to you, and more of a positional pointer if you prefer this hardware to sit somewhere else on your wrist, further this direction or further that direction. So if you wanted to tighten it, you would simply pull this loop out a bunch. Make sure that you're not getting bound up in this area here by pulling it through tightly, and then coming back around and hooking it on. If you wanted to loosen it, you would shorten this loop. And maybe I can demonstrate that. I'm going to shorten it. I like where that position is, so I'm going to shorten it by pulling on this right side just a little bit. There we go. It's about half the length as it was. So now this is going to come around and feel just a bit looser than it did before. Again, I always come up here and make sure that I'm not bunched up on anything after an adjustment like that. And it is overall fitting just a little bit looser. If that's your preference, it still feels fine. It's not going anywhere. It will not come undone. Absolutely not, until you want it to. It's a very deliberate act. But I hope that helps in terms of understanding all the adjustment of everything. And once again, that is universal. It doesn't matter if you're using a tether or not. But perhaps I can demonstrate the tether. You can see it just poking out a little bit beneath this watch. That doesn't bother me at all. And that little bit of security that it adds is great without adding any extra profile. I'm a big fan of that. I hate raising up my watch off my wrist any more than I have to. So let's try and simulate this. I'm going to induce a failure, as it were. There we go. I've just undone a spring, and this watch is now loose. But it's still there. I have no worries about that. So there you go. Hope that helps. I hope everyone is having a great holiday season, and enjoy. So for those of you with a smaller watch like we just briefly touched on, thought I might show you how we will install the trimmed version of the Tether onto those watches. So first of all, I'm actually going to remove the spring bars from this watch. For the Dive Series straps, you'll notice that the included spring bars are of a standard variety and as thin as I can get without being any sort of compromise on strength and durability. But this is to allow the thicker material to pass through your watch a bit better. So now to install the reduced tether, what we want to do is first install this onto the strap itself. So I'm going to set that down, and I'm going to come over here, remove the hook like this, so that it's ready to go. And we're going to come back here, and I'm going to fold it over as previously demonstrated. And I'm just going to do this one side at a time. So there's this side, and I'm going to put it so that the black side is facing down. And I'm going to push the strap itself over the top and down through the slot that we created, that reinforced slot, as it were. And there we go. One side is installed. We're going to fold this side in half, and fold it once again. And now we're going to come up through the bottom. Might be a little grippy, that's okay. And that's it. This tether is now fully installed. There we go. So now both spring bars are installed, and the tether is as short as possible between them so that it doesn't stick out. There we go. We now have a fully installed Dive Series hook strap with a tether, and you'd never know it's there. Completely concealed, doing its job. This won't go anywhere if a spring bar was to have a horrific, unplanned failure, but your watch will be secure. Now, for those of you with fixed bar watches, such as a Pelagos or Tactical Frog, you will see that there are no spring bars to be worrying about, which means a tether would be redundant and pretty much useless. To install this, we're going to take our fixed bar watch and slide this from the top at the 6 o'clock position through the space. It is going to be snug because of the added material and the grippiness of it, but you'll just have to muscle it. Once you get both sides through, you can just kind of tug it. Now we want to bring the strap up through the 12 o'clock position. You can use a strong thread through the loop if you prefer, and then just kind of wobble it and then pull it through. At this point, we will reinstall our hook, and it is now installed onto the watch, but we still have to adjust the fitment. And I'm pretty happy with that. I hope that helps. Enjoy.